Hi, guys. Is your screen big enough? My God. This is the poshest do I've ever done.
We can make your head even
Welcome
bigger,
to
Jamie
Sweden,
Oliver.
yeah.
Yes. Hello, Jamie Oliver.
Hello, darling.
Sugar.
Yeah. You want some?
What's your sort of initial reaction to this? Why do you think it's such a bad idea in drinks?
It's delicious. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And nature gives it to us in many exciting forms.
Yeah.
But it's an overused commodity, right?
Right.
And it gets misused. And along with other things that have challenged sort of global and national health, salt, fat, sugar, water, we'd rather sell you that than food. But I think, for me, I've been sort of telling the story of sugar for a long time now, because I think if you're passionate about kids and schools and obviously not working for government or a company per se, I don't have to go by the rules, so I can break the rules. So if I want to stand at the front of a school and look at 2,000 kids' bags, I can. And in there, you're going to find out, certainly in Britain and a lot of the Western world, that there's a lot of kids' breakfast is an energy drink. Red Bull, Monster, Coke.
Who gives their kids Red Bull for breakfast?
Whether it's the parents or not. I mean, you have got ignorance. I mean,
right.
I would, as a father myself, I would never like to think that any parent wants to do harm to their kid. But there is a lot of misunderstanding about food. And if little Johnny's tired, your boy's tired.
Yeah.
And if your reaction is, I'm going to give him an energy drink,
right,
because he's tired,
right,
I think, it's really frightening. It's really frightening. And it's more frightening to see a whole nation being fueled before lunchtime by an energy drink. I mean, can you imagine how hard it is to teach those kids? So I think it's, we're at a time now where health is completely, in my opinion, connected to prosperity and economies, how bright your next generation of thinkers are.
Do you think, you've been doing this for a long time, been talking about sugar for a long time, and eventually the UK government did what? I mean, this is a really
little bit of a U-turn, I would say.
Yeah. What did they do for people who haven't heard?
Well, look, I mean, it's really. I basically spent the last year and a half trying to build a narrative to why it would be logical and fair to tax what the Sackin report had clearly demonstrated to be the largest single source of sugar in our kids and teenagers. So, and it's a really good debate. It's about, you've got government, you've got the public, and you've got business. And where is the line where things are okay? Okay, where is that line?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I know where that line is, but I think that when institutions own your Olympics and your European Cups and your biggest sporting events, which is the biggest stage on the planet for us all to inspire to, and look at and watch with our kids, when they're owned by junk food, when is the line? And for me, the Sackin report was the line. And I spent a year and a half trying to build the logic that it's now time to tax. So, whether you believe in it or not, everyone has tried to judge me on the logic of it.
Right.
So if it's about lowering consumption, well, there's some measurement for that. Fine. Is that why I did it? No, not really. Is it about raising cash? Partly, because if we can hypothecate it to schools, I'm happy to take from Peter to pay Paul, because our schools are struggling in food education and sports.
So where will the sugar tax go to? Where will the funds from that go to?
So they are ring-fenced, which is quite unusual for the British government, to after-school clubs, breakfast clubs and sports. But then you kind of, look, there's lots of really clever people in the audience. So that the way it comes in at 2018, the way it's geared, is really just a big rocket up the arse of reformulation.
Right.
Right, that's what it is. How much money? It's about £1 billion we could get, £1 billion we could get. Will we get that? No, because business will reformulate, and they are already well dug in to reformulation. So, it then becomes about how do we control the dealers, the sugar dealers, really? And that's, for me, and for the nutritionists that care about public health, it's like sugar's a problem. It's, last week, Simon Stevenson said that obesity directly costs more than police and the fire service put together in Britain. It's nearly 20% of the whole budget of the NHS.
Right.
Phenomenal amounts of cash.
Yeah. So part of this and part of your food revolution is about educating people and then pushing governments to actually do better by their people.
To do their job.
Yeah, do better. Let's work with the government bit first of all.
Where do you want to start?
Well, what else do you want? You've got a sugar tax.
Well, look, so the sugar tax, I mean, look, I don't know who's playing who, right?
Right.
In this game. I mean, the only thing I'm really passionate about is I know that when you inspire the public to expect more, being more holistic in basic knowledge of food, where it comes from and how it affects your body, when you do that, the direct effect is governments change their rhetoric on how they get your vote, and most importantly, probably, business change their rhetoric on how they get your pound or your dollar or whatever it happens to be. So I think, and you can see, you know, where public expect more, people behave better. So you can take companies, you know, like Coke and look at them in the UK or Europe and say they behave fairly well. And in the UK, they do portion sizes and front of pack color coding, great. But if you look and analyze how marketing happens in the developing world, I know because I've asked the global public and they've shown me, you know, marketing and activity that I think most people in the room would agree is unfair or unfit for that part of the world, where access to clean, safe water or malaria tablets is really, really important. So, you know, I think, so for me, really, it's like, I don't really have a role. I have a really weird, odd role where I'm kind of using...
Are you just pointing out the obvious, loudly?
I've never done anything radical or clever in my life.
Right.
Nothing. And I think, and the sort of, and the celebrity bit is a kind of a really annoying but often quite potent thing. So trying to manage that tool, and you know, like a year and a half ago, the British government were not interested in the sugary drinks tax. Up 2 months before, it was not even, no way. So something changed, and I would like to think that after a year and a half of doing a documentary, getting a campaign, we did a campaign with the public to force debate in the House of Commons. You know, the support from all of the institutional bodies of Britain were in favour.
Right.
And then even when the tax went through, it polled at 75%. A tax polled at 75%. But only if it goes to the money goes to schools. So I think, I think that even the greatest people in government and even the greatest people in corporations, there are good people in all of those. And I think sometimes telling those stories can fast track progress. And I don't know, like, I mean, look, when I started school dinners, I mean, 11 years ago in Britain, there were no standards for kids' food in schools for 190 days of the year from the age of 4 to 18, and we had an obesity problem with our kids, right? But if I wanted to sell dog food, there's a lot of work you got to do to fulfill the criteria of nutritional sort of spectrum of that dish, and if you don't, there's fines and penalties. You can be put in jail for that.
Wow.
Don't worry about the kids, the dogs. Now, they're cute. So I think that was only 11 years ago in Britain, and I think we're supposed to be remotely sane in Britain, apparently, but we're not. And I think, so really, and also when you start saying the state, the government is responsible for half a child's nutrition for their childhood, breakfast and lunch, 190 days of the year, it's kind of grossing up to a lot of responsible energy going into our kids. And I think there's so many things that we can do to make good.
I'm going to ask you about one.
But sugar's generally the problem in a lot of them.
Mostly sugar. All right. Where are the microphones in the room? Where are they? Come forward so we can see you. Come out of the shadows and into the light. Good. Who has a question for Jamie Oliver? See hands? Go to a hand. There we go.
Hello, sir.
Okay, my name is Johan Jorgensen. I head up the Internet Society's discussions regarding Internet of Food. My question is, I mean, like, we have a lot of old people in this room, and you talk about revolution. Are you preaching to the choir here, or are you preaching to the wrong people?
This is the first time to be here. And I think that I don't think this room needs to be preached to. There's a lot of brains in this room. I think probably if I'm guilty of being really bad at something. It was for 13 years of running the revolution and doing disruptions and running campaigns in various countries. It was so small, so underfunded, full of heart and love, and getting our hands dirty and grassroots. But we weren't very good at collaboration. And about a year and a half ago, around about my 40th birthday, I started to just get quite tired and realised that actually they're collaborating with some of the people in this room is absolutely... I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm really bad at. And I think most people in the room are equally as honest. And I think when you start putting pieces of the jigsaw together of people that use science and invest in measurement and start telling stories that affect health and children and the next generation, the environment, and how we can do better and how we can agitate and piss off the right people at the right time to do. I think, for me, this room is about collaboration, or certainly that's the only reason I turned up. I don't know what will come from it, and I don't think that you should come to an event to expect anything, but for the days I have left on the planet, I'd quite like to be useful. There's so much good work to be done. And the thing is that governments are like ships that pass in the night. You know, heads of departments in governments are like ships that pass in the night. CEOs, CMOs are ships that pass in the night. So really, the next generation of slightly more forward-thinking management, governors, and well dug in, well thought out strategies. That's kind of what I'm interested in nowadays, really. Not just little bits.
Hello.
Hi, Jamie. My
Hello.
name is Pawan. Firstly, thank you and congratulations for the great work done with the UK. But my worry is this. The tax that the UK Chancellor of the Exchequer has introduced is too low. Why? Because the cost to the NHS is £5 billion. The cost of diabetes and obesity and so on to the UK economy in terms of lost productivity is £27 billion. And he'll probably raise at these levels of taxation £550 million or thereabouts. So how can we take this forward to the next level? Because clearly we can't declare victory right now.
Good point. And there lies the problem about the grey area. Landing the tax, for me, was the priority. We'd worked with Oxford University on modelling, you know, what was the minimum that could be effective, and that is thus what we have. But I think we all know as well that the sugary drinks tax is probably more symbolic than it is in Britain, anyway, you know, probably more effective in Mexico, where the base of ill health and saturation is so much higher. But I think it was about landing it, and also, like, my personal passion is that after the kind of referendum in Britain, Mr. Cameron's personal next job is the childhood obesity strategy. And, like, look, I'm happy. If he does a good job, I'll be right next to him. And I'll be screaming about, yes. But if it's rubbish, I will do the opposite. And I will be a pain in the arse for the next 5 years of his life in government. So, like, I'm happy to be his mate. And he knows that. But like, this, we had to land that tax. By the way, I never thought I'd get that tax. So the logic for making the documentary and running the campaign in my head was to fast-track reformulation from an MD sort of research and development level. That was really my personal objective. When Mr. Osborne announced it, I didn't know. So I just went mental. I just went absolutely crazy. So, but what was amazing was when we were at the World Health Organization Assembly the other week.
May 23rd in Geneva.
When the other health ministers, because I mean, you guys know better than me, but often the great aspirations of a health department are very much controlled by the Treasury. And for the people in the room, they were really excited, because all we want is a bit of inertia, a bit of change, a bit of energy.
Right.
Like, come on. And I think that we all know that if the food system's broken, we kind of need to rethink totally what's appropriate, what's not, how is business suitable, not suitable, what's okay. So look, I guess what I haven't said is, if he does a good job on the childhood obesity strategy, then the theory is that we can ramp it up. If we can measure it and track it with clever people that do that in all the ways that you need to, we'll ramp it, and I'll push that. And the other thing is as well, is there anything else that should be attached to that? And look, tax isn't my favourite thing. It's probably not your favourite thing, but interestingly enough, 75% on the poll, taking that money and putting it into schools is quite unusual, so very interesting.
When you're talking to people like the World Health Assembly there in Geneva, and you're talking to ministers, how do you talk to them?
Like this?
Like rocket up the arse?
Yeah, because they want to rocket
going
up
mental.
the arse. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Really? Okay.
Look, don't get me wrong, I'm learning every day about how to talk to certain types of people in a certain type of way, but I think ultimately, I've gone back to school just to make sure I can keep up with the conversation of basic science and basic nutrition.
Right.
And, it's, for me, like, I've been doing this for 20 years, guys. Like, nutrition is like the most incredible thing in the world, but I feel it's deeply underserved.
Yeah.
When I was, I got a fellowship in Harvard a couple of years ago.
That's really posh.
And the head of the School of Public Health said I was the first non-academic person to get it, which you know what that means, right? You know what that means. But what I learned about when I looked at all those professors in the room, what I learned very quickly is like they should have a documentary department. They're not very good at telling stories, and often that's a disease that nutrition and science can have. And I'm really passionate to help contribute to making complex things simpler and making the public understand stuff, especially when it's about how long people live and how well someone could do at school. It's fascinating. So it's been an amazing journey so far. But I think what's amazing is I think everyone feels that it's a moment right now. And I don't know how long, but we got to make the moment work. Otherwise, it will carry on like the last 10 years. So I think the next 10 years could have much more effect and energy. And I'm really excited about that.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
We were together in Mexico, and we were part of the documentary that you did.
Bless you.
And
I haven't seen you since.
It's not a question. It's possible that I cannot talk with you. I don't know, but it's 2 days ago in the Lancet, in the blog of the Lancet, was published an analysis of the second year of the soda tax impact on consumption in Mexico, because the industry paid 3 different research in Mexico to say that the tax is not working.
Yeah.
No. But this research and another one shows that in the second year of the soda tax in Mexico, we have a reduction close to 8%. The first year was 6%, and the second year was 8%. It's only 2, no? And because I know that this study space by the industry was used by Coke, Pepsi, no? In a lobby with the government in UK, South Africa, India, Colombia, and many, many other countries that are discussing the soda tax.
It's amazing.
And you can saw the human drama that we are living with the soda consumption in Mexico.
Congratulations on that measurement. We met in Mexico, and correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but we got some of the worst type 2 diabetes in the world. 75,000 amputations because of type 2 diabetes a year. Many not done in hospital. Well, it depends on what part of Mexico you do, but I mean, it is a human drama, like you said. But obviously, this is the first time we've seen each other, and that I was going for the sugar tax, but also your worry was that industry was going to take your one away, and how sustainable would it be? But I think the power of big business is frightening. But I don't actually think that it's. I don't think. Like I said, I've never done anything clever or radical.
Right. But I think you're underselling yourself a little bit.
It's not anti-business.
Is it because everybody else is really, really not getting the picture and they don't want to speak up and they're affiliated? Is that what you're saying?
I think that a capitalist society and democracy is wonderful. God bless you all. But it does let certain people get too successful. Right. And it's up to us as these societies work themselves out to work out what is okay.
Right.
Is it okay that when I have 27,000 journalists come to Britain for the Olympics, that nothing natural can get in that park? That real food, real farming can't have a fucking voice on a global stage.
Right.
So, it's not right. It's not right. And in our lifetime, the only way that we have a chance is if next to Coke and McDonald's is there a bloody great carrot. Or something that represents the good things. And I also think that, how you bring many small parts. And look, at the same time, look, Coke and McDonald's are doing some really interesting things. So they've got to be patted on the back for doing great work.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they have become icons of success. But actually, the real problem, in my opinion, at the moment, is thousands of smaller, shitty businesses that peddle even worse. I mean, just not, you know what I mean. So how do you make effect there? So it's we all know it's an environmental thing.
Do you have the answers or any answers yet? Or are you just trying to chip away at the fact that we need to stop and think?
So my obsession with the childhood obesity strategy is if Mr. Cameron is a true man, acting as a father, not a politician, then that childhood obesity strategy needs to be robust. It can't be a simple headline.
Right.
It can have simple pillars, but it has to be robust. It has to be detailed. It has to use the brains and minds of people like this to do their job. From the seed and the difference between different seeds growing the same product, to fortification, to supporting breastfeeding women and pregnant mothers, to primary schools, food education, growing schemes, inner city, farm life, farming, business, what's right, what's wrong, what you can do, what you can't do, labelling, honesty, clarity, front of pack. I mean, it's the list, you know it, you all guys know it. The answers are all in this room, aren't they? Everyone could solve the world in this room. It's like, the answers are here. So what it is about how do you empower the people that have spent a lifetime watching how different things affect different communities in different parts of the world under totally different circumstances, and what's appropriate and what's fit. And, and of course, having come back from the World Health Assembly, I think tomorrow the global goals announced that 57 countries have the double burden of hunger malnutrition and obesity malnutrition. And this is a sadly growing area, and one that challenges governments and health departments in totally even more stress.
Yeah.
So it's complicated, isn't it? And I think obviously my job is on telly doing cute little cooking shows. It's kind of like.
Do you still cook? Do you have time?
I generally cook every day,
right.
but my remit is so weird. My job is so weird.
What is your job?
I don't know. I don't know.
You're doing it really well.
I don't know, but do you know what? I think when you go into boardrooms or government rooms, like, I think, as you start to get a bit better at reading rooms and reading people and thinking, right, who's been working on the right thing for 6 years, 6 months and never got it over the line? Who's the person blocking it? Where's the ego? How long is he or she going to be there? It's just kind of like this kind of whole game of egos.
Are you doing that in this room right now?
No, not at all. But I think it's about moving stuff along. There's a certain speed to progress. And I think for most people in this room, it's not fast enough.
Let me just squeeze in one more question. Really quick.
Natalie Senora from Greenpeace International. Thank you, first of all, very much for all of the work that you've been doing. My question is about, we see a lot of the work that you do revolves around introducing a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables into schools, but I wanted to know about specifically in regards to consumption of animal-based products and whether you've been looking at reducing those and also introducing, perhaps in the place of the smaller amounts, more ecologically raised animal-based products.
Are you a vegetarian?
Vegan.
What? A vegan. All right. I kind of felt that was behind the question. All right.
Well, the answer is yes to all those questions. I think interestingly, for many, many years, because my normal stance of food is quite Mediterranean. Mediterranean tracks pretty well in health, generally speaking. And a lot of my peers on TV were kind of quite cream and cheese based. So like, I kind of felt cocky that my food was quite healthy. And generally speaking, it was healthy. But as far as sort of like being a bit more ninja about quantity and stuff like that, and then having gone back to school and studied nutrition, I mean, like now what we do, to answer your question, we've always pushed more veg, and we've always been about, I mean, you can see from the campaigns earlier, we've always been about animal welfare and more natural feed and less intensification of farming, and definitely more veg. But I think now it's all right saying it, and I think a lot of chefs say it. What I do now as a business is literally we can only output a certain amount of content. So probably half of my content is now vegetarian.
Right.
That doesn't mean we don't love meat, but if we do it, there's a whole narrative, and we try and reflect the right kind of quants that you should be having. So I think it's... but at the same time, you kind of... It's really... I mean, look, part of... In Mexico, when I was in the Chiapas, part of progress... That narrative, whether we don't agree with it, but part of the narrative of progress is that Coke is progress.
Okay.
It's like Gucci. If you come around my house and you get a Coke, that's like Gucci, man.
Right.
If you get a local brand, that's kind of like Henny's. Like, and if you get water, it's like get out of here. You know, so it became a status symbol. And if you look about how Coke came through the church and how it was kind of accredited with a kind of status symbol, and meat was exactly the same. Sicilian meatballs went from that, and then they went to America, and it was the good life. Boom! It wasn't. Do you know what I mean? Meat is a status symbol. So we need to sort of slightly retell the story about the values of natural rather than intensive, and that can be bumpy ride. But we're in for the long time.
Okay, one more thing. I've been on your website, and you have a call to action, and a call to action for people to not just suck it up and take it, but actually do something about it.
Yes.
What is that something?
Okay, well, so this one here look, we're trying to get better at what we do, and so what do? We try and have a voice to the people globally, and we try and aggregate many voices from around the world to use them and their likes, dislikes, their vote, their opinions to help push governments. So you can sign up. You go to jamiesfoodrevolution.org. I think that's probably out of date now. We're nearly heading towards 800,000 people. They're all kind of activists, really. And they're from all around the world. Certainly most countries are represented. So what we're trying to develop is, or what my dream is to develop and fund. What I want to do in the next 4 or 5 months is put together a really ninja news team. So what does that mean? It means we want to aggregate the world's food news, talk to the people in science and nutrition that are doing really interesting work, and make sure that we can surface those stories and use an incredible news team and myself to put it out there, but also behind the wall, make the language of technology and images and video all available for free to any news network in the world. So basically what I'm trying to say is we want food to be represented in the news more often, better, more balanced. I know for the scientists in the room, you know, you give like 3 years' work that thick to a journalist from the Daily Mail, and you kind of like all of a sudden you can't eat this anymore, and that's bad for you and that'll kill you. So I think balance and clarity is what we're trying to do. So it's basically a Food Revolution news hub, but at the same time you're joining something that is hopefully going to become millions of people. So hopefully we can do studies and get people involved. We can get them to vote on things in their own country. And I think bridge the gap through technology about local news and global news. That's the dream. I hope it works. If not, we'll go on to the next thing. But I think it's got legs, this one. And I think, well, I'll tell you in a year.
Jamie Oliver, this was your first Eat.
Yes.
How was it for you?
Emotional. It's been very nice. Thank you very much for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jamie Oliver.
Thank you very much.
Nice job. You all right?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.